For this week's field test, we've come to a nature reserve in Montana, near the famous Yellowstone National Park, with the Nikon D500. We're going to be spending 2 days in the company of Ronan Donovan.
We got some ravens here, there's 2 of them perched. They're onto us.
A biologist and nature photographer, Ronan has worked in this park before, and we're hoping that he'll know where we can find the bird and animal species that make it such a rich photographic environment.
My name is Ronan Donovan, and I'm a visual storyteller that works for National Geographic magazine. There's a real marriage between photography and science for me. The idea of storytelling and conservation, the 2 things are really important in the work that I do. I did 2 summers around the state of Montana, conducting surveys for basically everything that you don't hunt. So amphibians, reptiles, small mammals, bats, birds. I started out as a wildlife biologist. I did field biology for about 10 years. And when I wasn't conducting surveys for the state, I was out playing with my camera and practicing. You know, it's about knowing your subject. I think that the most successful wildlife photographers that I looked up to are some that also were wildlife biologists in the beginning, and then they transitioned into photography. I didn't know about making a career of this. I had no plans of that. And over the course of 10 years, it progressed into that for me. It's one of those lessons where you make your passion your work. I'm still just a crappy businessman. So this valley is unique in that it's kind of nestled in between these 2 mountain ranges, one to the north and one to the south. And they're big ranges that they hold wolves and elk and grizzlies and the big megafauna that we still have in North America. We're in a really unique area. We're within the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem at a wildlife refuge. It's a big grassland complex, sagebrush with some streams and creeks running through that are lined with willows, so it's a good place for moose that'll browse. And it's a photographer's paradise in many ways. Perfect area for nesting because everything can just tuck up into these little reed islands.
This is an arid area.
What I need in the camera for wildlife photography, it's got to have really fast autofocus. It's got to have durability in the body, weather sealing, and it's got to have a high frame rate.
The 20 megapixel D500 is Nikon's most professionally oriented APS-C DSLR yet. Capable of shooting at up to 10 frames per second, the D500 is fast, tough, and highly advanced, making it a perfect companion for virtually any kind of photography. At the heart of the D500 is a 20 megapixel APS-C sensor, giving an effective focal length increase of 1.5 times. If the 1.5 times focal length increase doesn't get you quite close enough, 20 megapixels is easily enough resolution to allow for cropping. We're only using full-frame lenses on this shoot, because we'll need that extra reach to capture birds and other small animals from a distance. With a fast XQD card installed, at 10 frames per second, the D500's burst depth is incredible, even in RAW mode. I didn't bring the manual, did you?
Oh, I thought you were the manual. Yesterday we were driving around, and the first bird we came upon was a kestrel. There's a kestrel right here on this fence. Yep. American kestrel, a male who's got something in his talons. And it looked like it had like a big cricket, big Mormon cricket, really fat-bodied. I was having trouble flying with it because it's a pretty good-sized animal. It's a challenging bird to photograph. They're our smallest falcon that we have in North America, and incredibly agile, quick-moving in the air.
One of the most impressive technologies that the D500 brings to action and wildlife photography is its autofocus system. In 3D AF tracking mode, all 153 of the D500's autofocus points work with the camera's 180,000 pixel metering sensor to identify and track a subject as it moves around the frame.
Another bird we saw was Swainson's hawk, and the Swainsons ended up taking off and doing a really nice arc, flying right overhead. Got some really nice, frame-filling shots of the Swainsons.
Capturing a sharp photo of a bird flying against a blue sky is easy for most DSLR AF systems, but a low-level flyby against a cluttered, similarly coloured background is a different matter altogether.
One of the main things that impressed me about it was the giant swath of autofocus points. Essentially, your whole viewfinder is an autofocus point that's picking up where this bird is.
The array of autofocus points covers virtually the full imaging area of the D500 sensor, which is very handy when trying to keep a fast-moving subject framed correctly. The D500's autofocus response can be customized according to how erratically the subject is moving and how likely it is for other objects to get between it and the camera. At the equivalent of 750mm, even at a relatively small aperture, depth of field is tiny. These hawks can dive at close to 100 miles per hour, but the majority of shots in this sequence are in focus.
This touchscreen's cool.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
The D500 features a tilting, touch-sensitive rear screen. The touchscreen is perhaps most useful when it comes to quickly flipping through and zooming into images in review mode. I think the biggest issue is that I need an ND filter, and the only one we have is on your camera right now, filming me. But anyway, let's see what we have.
Want it?
Sorry?
Want it?
Do you mind? Do you not need it?
I mean, for the shot, you can do it.
The D500 offers a solid video feature set, including 1080 60p movie recording and 4K. 4K footage can be captured at up to 30p, but in this mode the field of view is cropped by a further 1.5 times, which adds up to a total crop factor of 2.25 times.
I'm enjoying here the grass, which is, just getting blown by the wind a lot, so going down to a really slow shutter speed, a 20th of a second, and trying to get a little bit of motion here.
We had a really nice situation yesterday evening. Sun had already set, we're heading back, and we came upon this lake that had 2 trumpeter swans on it. 100 years ago, they were thought to have been extinct. They were, a big bird for market hunters, and they were hunted out, and there was only a couple places left in the United States where these birds were found. So it's really low light this time. We're shooting at, 3200 ISO. My shutter speed was an 1/8 of a second, so I'm shooting basically panned action, waiting for some movement. And they were kind of going through these pair bonding rituals where they, come up to each other, bob their heads up and down, and then they did a couple successive flights.
While Ronan focused on capturing movement with his panning shots, I wanted to see how the D500 performed when trying to track the trumpeter swan's landing. Even at an incredible ISO 258,000, a lot of detail and colour can be drawn out of the raw files. On our way back to camp, Ronan got this quick grab shot of a short-eared owl using just the lights of our truck.
We're camped next to this picturesque lake. It's full of waterfowl. And so we get up an hour before sunrise, walk down along the lake, and just had this pretty idyllic scene where sun rising to the east, there's a long stream cloud that's getting lit up, started out, kind of this salmon pink color and then orange. And all the while there's ducks and geese flying back and forth, a pair of swans flew by, northern harrier flew over. Really just one of those spectacular moments where you, as a photographer, just as a human, you just get really excited and energized by seeing those things. Starting off your day in that way is one of the things I really like about this job. My goal with the photography and the stories that I produce is to get invested in it, not just take what is given to you, it's to ask questions. Inherently, people are losing touch with the environment and losing touch with the idea of conservation. And I think that the ability to see those places is, the first step of getting people invested in them. Public land to me is a really important aspect of North America, and we're incredibly lucky in having the amount of public land that we do. Half the United States is public land, and that's a big deal. The more people experience public lands and wild places, then they're going to be connected to it, and they're going to want to have a voice in how it's used in the future. When photography is done right, that is the goal.
Shooting wildlife is full of challenges, from the erratic movement of a hawk in flight to capturing an owl way after dark. Fortunately, Ronan knows this area and its fauna so well that we were able to plan our shooting locations and take full advantage of the D500's 1.5 times crop to get in close without disturbing the animals that we found. But even when we weren't shooting bursts of frames at long focal lengths, the D500 proved an ideal companion for this trip, and both Ronan and I came away with some great shots. For DP Review, I'm Barney Britton. Thanks for watching.